And it's breaking news that leads at this hour. Thank you for joining us. We start with this. Steinhoff's offer to pay out 25 billion rand to settle with claimants has been given the green light by the Western Cape Division of the High Court. Let's speak now to eNCA's Lindsay Dentlinger about this morning's ruling. So details for us, please, Lindsay. What does this all mean?
Well, Tulas, it was over within under an hour. We were expecting several days for this to be discussed and to go through the processes of the court. But essentially what it means is that 4 years now since that share price plummeted due to those financial irregularities that emerged at the end of 2017, hundreds, if not thousands, of those who invested in Steinhoff in all forms, this is not only its financial creditors, will now finally be compensated in some form for what they lost as a result of that share price plummeting. This proposal was already put before a court in the Netherlands in September. And why the Netherlands? That's because that is where Steinhoff is domiciled, and it was sanctioned in that court. But it also required the Western Cape Division of the High Court to sanction the same proposal for it to become binding. And so we await further details with regard to when exactly these payouts may be made, but we can now say with certainty that it's been a long time coming, and those who invested and those who lost as a result of the collapse of these Steinhoff shares back in 2017 will now finally get some form of what the court said today. Judge Roshani Ali saying she believed was just and equitable compensation.
Yeah, the natural question that arises, Lindsay, in a country where people are just fed up with corruption, be it in the public or the private sector, is what are the implications of this for criminal prosecutions for people that include Marcus Jooste, for example, that many have been calling for many, many years. This is a separate process, is it not? This is more civil than the criminal process.
Correct. It's a totally separate process, and this doesn't really mean that anything really happens to the former CEO, Marcus Jooste, at whose door all of this has been placed as blame. We do know that there were some litigants who said this whole proposal idea was really unfair, and in effect that this company should be liquidated. There should be some kind of punishment for what it did to its investors and its shareholders. But they also reached an agreement out of court in December, and so today the court heard that there was no opposition to this proposal, and so it would go ahead, and so Steinhoff now looks unlikely to be liquidated, and all those who have claimed from the company will now also no longer have any future recourse against the company. So as you point out, a totally separate process, but this doesn't say anything as to what and when and will we ever see anything happen to those, including Marcus Jooste, who were responsible for this whole mess in the first place.
Yeah, I suppose the good folks at the Victoria and Griffiths Mxenge building in Silverton in Pretoria might be able to answer that question when we might see any movement, criminally at least. Lindsay, it's a bit of an unfair question on you. I imagine that you still need to go through the judgment itself that formalizes this settlement. But from hearing the judge reading it, how much further do we learn about the Steinhoff saga? I know it's been written about extensively over the years. There have been many, many revelations. Do we glean any new information of how it all unfolded?
No, we don't, Tulas. This particular case purely focused on compensating those who suffered losses. It's a result of months and weeks and of meetings. There were many meetings also happened abroad where this whole agreement was thrashed out. There are various categories of litigants and claimants, and to work out what each of them would get. So this really does not go into the nitty-gritty of how we got to this point. This is merely a Companies Act inquiry sanctioning to compensate those involved, and as you can imagine, on the part of Steinhoff, to stave off being liquidated, because it could have come down to that if claimants were not prepared to accept the proposals that have been placed before them. So we don't learn any more as to how this whole situation unraveled in the first place. It was purely to deal with compensating those and to stop any future kind of litigation that could lead to the complete collapse of this company.
All right, eNCA's Lindsay Dentlinger tracking that story there, breaking out of the Western Cape Division of the High Court. The court approving there Steinhoff's 25 billion rand payout to multiple claimants. That's the civil process. The criminal process, that's a whole different matter.